We were sitting in the harbor at Pearl Harbor when the bombing, so we knew that the war was going to be coming close to an end.
Mm-hmm.
We all thought the war was over now, we're going to go home. But we were already loaded up, and all of the places that we were carrying our refrigerated product, those people weren't going to go home in one day either.
Mm-hmm.
So they still had to have that frozen product that we had in our hold.
Mm-hmm.
So we still had to go out and make our rounds. We left Pearl Harbor shortly in September September the 4th or 5th. And when we got to Saipan and Guam and Tinian, we went to the 3 harbors and unloaded our cargo to those places.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Now, did you know, going back to the, I mean, when the bombs hit, did you see? I mean,
we did not see any newsreels of it.
Okay.
Now, I am told that people in Honolulu, they saw on television there in Honolulu, they saw the pictures of the bomb. Now, again, I don't know that they were released in that sequence, you see.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm trying to find the pictures here of my ship here. Then, when I got off of the refrigerated cargo ship to come home, I came home on an escort carrier, and this was the trip on this plane that I want to stress between the difference of then and now. Then, this is 1945.
Mm-hmm.
The planes on the deck there were F-4Fs, F-6Fs, and I don't know what the F stand for, fighter planes, that was one of them. And those planes traveled about 300 to 400 miles an hour, top speed close to 400 miles an hour. They were supposedly some of the fastest airplanes in that era.
Mm-hmm.
They took us 3 weeks to come home on that ship. Then, when I got home, got out of the Navy, I thought, well, my career with the Navy was over with.
Mm-hmm.
Then in 1985, I got back into the Navy because, where's he going to put his picture? Here we are. My son-in-law had spent 30 years at that time in 1985. He was in the Navy about 20 some odd years. He was a dentist.
Mm-hmm.
And when I went aboard, he invited me to come, with the Navy's help, of course, and permission of my wife, to go back in and come back, fly out to Pearl Harbor and meet the ship that he was on, another aircraft carrier, the Carl Vinson, powered by nuclear fission.
Wow.
The nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, the Carl Vinson, came back home, and they allowed the people that lived on the ship at that time to invite male relatives to come and have what they called a Tiger Cruise, to come back home with them. So I flew out to Pearl Harbor and came back home on that 8-day trip. This is a picture of my son-in-law as he was that day. This is a picture of myself standing near the bridge, the island, they call it the island.
Mm-hmm.
Here it is with the man that I was bunked. Well, this is my son-in-law here, and this is the fellow, some of the guys that were there. And then here is one of the guys that I bunked with out there, and this is him. I don't remember his name, but those were the pictures of the Carl Vinson, nuclear powered. The thing that I remember the very most about the Carl Vinson, here is a picture of the Carl Vinson coming into California, San Francisco. This vessel here weighed almost 90,000 tons.
Wow.
If anybody is watching this and seeing, you would imagine that it would used up a lot of fuel on a 10-month cruise. This ship burnt up 3/4 of a pound of nuclear fuel. 3/4 of a pound of nuclear fuel to move this huge vessel all over the Indian Ocean back to Pearl Harbor, back to the United States. Nuclear fission keeps using itself over and over again. They announced this over the loudspeaker when we came into the San Francisco, and the captain says, "You're probably wondering how much fuel we burnt on our last cruise," and he said we used up 3/4 of a pound of fuel. Now, he said we burned up thousands and thousands of aviation gasoline to move the planes. The airplanes on the Carl Vinson, here's a picture of one of them, just the nose of it. Some of those jet planes travel at almost 1,400 miles an hour. And, of course, they burn up, actually, it's like kerosene fuel, what they use. And they used up multi thousands and thousands of gallons of airplane fuel.
Just so the viewers can get an idea of this, on this you see Alcatraz in the back, and just how big that. I mean, I realize it's off in the distance, so it's a little bit smaller in relation to the carrier. But man, that carrier
well,
is gigantic.
This is a floating city. The ship's company, the people that move the ship, they have about 3,500 people. The aircraft wing, that's the people that fly the planes and the mechanics that operate in it, but there's another 3,000 people. So this is a floating city of about 7,500 people, more than the size of Payo that we live in here. They have their own post office, their own feeding, sleeping. They even have their own jail, the brig it's called. This is the thing that got me of all of the travels that I had, was being on a modern ship that I could get back into the Navy 40 years after my service in the country. To see that the men and women, they didn't have any women on board at that time, they do now, that they can live in a warship like that, and it's almost like living in a regular city. And the life on board a ship, to me, is wonderful. You're out there on the grand ocean. You can see, even in the middle of the ocean, the albatross are out there. You can see the different kinds of fish, flying fish. Life on board ship, to me, was wonderful, even though I spent most of my time over the hot stove.
And then, did you ever get seasick?
I got seasick. If we were in port for 2 weeks, I got seasick for the first few hours out. Some of the guys that come off of a farm never got sick, and I always got seasick my first day out.
So now coming back on, okay, you're out there for months at a time, right?
Yes.
All right, so when you come back on land, I don't know, is there anything like a land sick?
Okay, I want to tell you something that happened to me when we came back off of one cruise. We had been out. This one cruise where we had the pancake deal. When we got to Pearl Harbor and we finally come back home, then the first thing, I was walking from the ship, went out the main gate at the shipyard, and then walking down the street, I was looking for a restaurant where I could get some fresh lettuce, a glass of fresh milk. And I heard a lady call, "Johnny, come home, it's time to come in," and heard that little child answer. All these months I had never heard a woman's voice or a child's voice. I cried. It broke me up just to think of that's what real people sound like. Little bitty children and women.
Well, yeah,
I hadn't seen them for all those months.
When you're on board like that and you're out for so long, I mean, it's
and
just...
you're out there on the ocean. Your only people that you are with is your shipmates, and it's day after day the same people, the same men, all the time, in the vast oceans, maybe the islands that you get to that you bring the food to, or when you bring ships out and they unload at the place and you escort other ships back. All of those comings and goings, not ever to hear a child. And then when I first heard them that first night coming back, going into town, it just overwhelmed me. To listen to a child and a woman's voice.
Now, what was the most, I want to say odd or different or unusual or strange thing you saw out there in the middle of the ocean? Is there one thing that just pops out?
One thing that popped, yes, I will. I will tell you, I left out one thing. The day that we pulled into Saipan Harbor, the next day, we had heard over the ship's radio that a typhoon was coming. A typhoon in the Pacific is the same thing as a hurricane here. We had instructions to get out of harbor as quickly as we could and to try to get on the lee of the island of Saipan. In other words, the lee is on the other side, the wind is blowing, the island is here, the wind is coming this way. We wanted to get over there. We could not get out of the harbor. The wind was blowing that hard.
Oh my God,
Some of
man,
the
big
waves,
old-
some of the waves were 60 feet tall. So if you can imagine standing on the deck and look up 60 feet and
60
see a
stories.
wave coming down to crash on top of your ship. This
How?
ship here.
Oh my gosh.
This ship here. And can you imagine it piling down here? And I had just taken up some hot food in a little tureen, little things within a K-pot. They know those little canvas-like things, like life preservers that
Yeah.
hold the food hot. I had just finished taking it up there, and we were breasting. Of course, you're not really 60 feet under it because you're rising with that wind, that wave, and that we fought many of those for almost 30 hours. And we were just trying our best to get out of that harbor so it wouldn't blow us up on the beach. Many ships were blown up on the beach and rolled over and sank
So like
with
on
people
that,
on them.
Would the ship, would it turn sideways?
Either sideways or you would ride up like this and then roll over that way.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And how many guys were, how many men were on board?
We had 17. We had 19 people and 22 officers.
Did
on
anybody
this
fall
ship.
off?
Nobody fell off
Oh,
because
wow.
we all tied lines around our waist, and we put the line, the rope around this way. And when you got inside, then you untied the rope and let it hang there. So when you came back out, you'd see it laying on the deck. You'd grab a hold of it, and then tie it back to that rope around your waistline, till you could get back down underneath in the cabins in below the deck.
So this is kind of off topic, but when you were in a gunfire, or when you were in like a battle or whatever, and you're passing up ammo, did your ship ever get hit? Did you ever get any
Our
men
ship
ever-
never we never got hit. You could feel the concussions when the planes were up there dropping bombs on the convoys, on the ships in the convoy. You could hear even down below deck in these ships here. This ship here. When these size of these vessels here, merchant ships would be inside. The escort vessels would be around, surrounding the convoy.
So how many ships were in a convoy?
Well, we had, the biggest one we had 80 ships in the convoy.
No way.
80 ships.
80
And we had an
ships, that
escort, we
massive.
had 7 escort vessels in that convoy. And they had one hospital ship in there. The rest were all different kinds, tankers. I did not see it, but a ship got hit by a torpedo, and it was a tanker, and it just was one great huge ball of fire. We could hear that. And when I had a chance, the battle was over, and I got up on deck, there was still fuel oil floating up on the waves.
So I mean,
when the battle was over.
when you're in something like that, do you obviously, I mean, adrenaline, but I mean, fear. I mean, do you even have time to think about fear?
While all this is going on, I'm handing up this clips of 40 millimeter magazine. They come 4 clips in a can.
Yeah.
And you just, as quick as you can handle them up. They're all standing in stashes, and when you pull a stanchion up that's holding it, and then you reach and grab the can, hand it up. There's 2 or 3 of us here, and then the next deck there's 2 or 3 till we were 3 decks down. And then when you get up, here's the gun that we were servicing the ammunition to.
Wow.
All around this rim here, they had clips. But when the battle's going, they used up those in a quick hurry. So rather than before they ran out, they'd use what we were feeding up. That's everybody can see. Around here, they had clips of ammunition, 4 shells. But these ships, they spit those out there faster than you can talk.
Wow.
40 millimeter anti-aircraft gun.
So now, I guess kind of switching eras. I mean, from back then to now. Let's do this. How about going from there to Vietnam or Korea? Now, when you guys came home, what was the attitude of the country?
I'm glad you brought that out. When we came home at the end of World War II, we were all welcomed. The only problem that many of us had was finding a job.
Yeah.
Because here is the influx of all of these service people coming back home. There weren't then the people, and then the jobs that were making ammunition, that were building tanks. They had to reconvert those back to making automobiles again. Well, that takes time.
Yeah.
For all of the people that either had experience working in an automobile factory, for them to gear over to work to where they would start making cars again. Then in the shipyards, they were quit building ships, period, until they started building cruise ships and converting into ships that would satisfy the peacetime economy. Then again, there was a period when it was hard for service people to find a job.
Yeah.
But we were welcomed by the populace. They were glad to see us get home away from all the fighting. Now then, when Korea came, that was a police action. It wasn't a real war. So the people coming home from Korea, they found a country that, oh, well, you guys come home from a police action. So they weren't received.
Now, by police action, what do you mean by that exactly?
That's what they called it, the police action in Korea. We were there to help police the North Koreans from invading South Korea.
Okay.
And it wasn't a real, quote, quote, real war.
Okay.
To many eyes.
And that's right there around the 87th parallel?
Yes.
Okay.
And then when
The demilitarized zone.
right, that's right, DMV zone. Then when Vietnam came, people did not want the Vietnamese war. They didn't want our participation in it. And now when we're saying the people, that's a broad term, of course.
Yeah,
But that's many people,
not a select group.
Many people thought that we didn't have any business being in Vietnam. We shouldn't have been there. And so the Vietnamese veterans were not welcome when they got home. And it created a lot of dissension of those young people trying to find, again, a place back in civilian life, a job, picking up life and going forward. What we find now, in my viewpoint, of being in a real war, World War II, the world at war, into even now in Afghanistan, Iraq before, what are we fighting? We're not fighting a real army. We're fighting insurgents. We're just fighting guerrillas.
Yeah.
And so, as we know it, my generation, what's going on in the world the past 15 years has just been helping other countries keep a lid on communism and people that are just wanting to make life hard for the people in their country. What are they attempting to get? We thought it was communist part. A lot of it is they just want probably religious freedom more than anything, or the religion as they know it and want it. All part of different phases of Islam. Do we have any business being there? I don't know. We think of ourselves, this is one veteran speaking, we have always thought of ourselves as being perpetrators of freedom. We have the only country in the world today that has all of the freedoms that we have. And we want other people to share in that. And when we can help, we've done it. It costs us a lot of money, untold millions of dollars. Are we right in doing that? It takes a smarter person than me to figure that out. I don't know.
So, okay, and going back to when you first got out, and this is kind of working in the end, but the transition for you, for even your position in the Navy, how was your transition coming out?
I was very fortunate. The family that I married into, the Stewarts, they wrote a letter out to the people there in California, my in-laws, and they said there's a job open in the Kroger store in Paola for Kenny. That's what I was known as in those days. And so we got on the train, we came back to Paola, and I went to work for the Kroger company on the north side of the square for a few months, and then we moved over to the south side of the square, which is the Fickle building.
Yeah.
Right now, what is that? That's the
Town Square Events.
Town Square Events.
That's where Herb Fickle.
That's right. That's where Herb Fickle and his family did take over after Kroger left in 1955, I think it was. But in 1946, when I came to town, some of my customers come in and they said, I don't want to buy anything today, I just wanted to see who married Betty Stewart. That made me feel good. But I like Paola. I think it's a beautiful city. And I have had different periods of time when I've lived elsewhere. I've lived in Florida, New Mexico, Oklahoma, Texas. But I guess Paola is still about the best place I've lived. But back to your original questions, how was it for me when I came back home? I was fortunate. I had a job right away. I did have a temporary job working at the Marine base in El Toro. What else? Cooking. But and then from going to cooking into meat cutting in a retail store was a big jump for me. But I just toughed it out and learned how to do it. And it was my whole profession was food handling and food distribution.
So, I guess kind of to wrap things up, and one of the reasons why I'm wanting to go around and interview people, and interview veterans, is to see, I guess I don't know if it's to prevent or just to give people a perception of the difference between back in World War II, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, to nowadays. I mean, I'll give you a moment to talk to the viewers, and I guess give your peace of mind about war and about the men that come back, the men and women that come back, and the veterans nowadays.
Well, I guess I could wrap this up by saying that whenever a group of people come back to their hometown, they're welcome, of course, by their families and their friends, their neighbors. But then those same family, friends, neighbors, the citizens of that town, however large it may be or small it may be, there's those group of people coming back, veterans, we call them. They are taking place of somebody that's already been there and keeping that town or that city going along. So for a little while, until they're assimilated back into the economy, the routine of that city, town, are they welcome? I don't know. Yes, they are, and maybe no, they're not. My own experience coming back home, I was fortunate. I found work right away. I was able to take up my duties as a family man, as a citizen in my town. I have voted in every election wherever I've been ever since then because I love my country. I still said it before, I say it again, it's still the best country in the world. Our system is always in danger of losing the freedoms that our forefathers set out for us. And if we give up our freedoms, shame on us, because we do have that huge power of voting in the people that represent us in our government. To any veteran coming out of service today, I say, do your best to get back into civilian life. Be as good a civilian as you were a good service person. That's what I tried to do, and I think I've succeeded in it. People that say that they come back and people are against me because I was a serviceman, I have to ask them, what kind of picture did you present when you got home? Mm-hmm. Were you agnostic? Were you sorry for yourself? Who knows? That could get into a lot of different things. Yeah. But ours is a great country, and it's made up of people, just like I'm sitting here talking to you all out there, whoever would see this. Make the most of what you got, I guess is what I want to say.
Ken, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me to do the interview. I appreciate it.
This is amazing. I want to thank everybody for watching this episode of the interviews with the military life, the military life, the veterans life, to hear stories about how it was and what it is now and where it may be going. I want to thank everybody for watching MCtv. This is Paul Michael Davis and Private First Class. Right?
Private First Class.
Private First Class. Kenny Bond.
There you go.
Thank you, everybody, and we'll see you soon.
Bye.